Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Russell Rhoads, Head of Research and Consulting at EQDerivatives, to discuss how markets responded to Election Day and if there were any similarities to 2016. Russell, it's great to have you with us. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And how did the markets and volatility react on the overnight?
Well, the one market that was really interesting and the thing to pay attention to was outside of the U.S., and it was actually China, when it looked like and the betting market showed Donald Trump suddenly being the favorite to win. Markets in China got hit a little bit, and the Chinese yuan got just absolutely pummeled to, I don't know if it has a limit down, but somebody was kidding around that it should have been limit down. With respect to the overnight futures, the Nasdaq futures outperformed the other broad-based index futures overnight, and there are different theories on that one. One might be that the stocks that have gone up so much that people might want to take profits on if they're worried about higher taxes. You won't see that sort of selling pressure. A mixed Congress might actually lead to a lower likelihood that the big tech companies are going to be called in to testify and possibly break up at some point in the future. But as far as what we saw in 2016 with really big move for the U.S. equity market and really big move for overnight volatility futures, we didn't get that, and we didn't seem to see a big move until about 5 or 6 this morning, maybe when everybody was waking back up.
Do you think that the markets provided accurate clues heading into the election?
Man, Monday morning quarterbacking is so easy. And of course, between watching all the results, I was looking at some of the trading that was going on. A lot of the at-the-money straddles for the broad-based indexes, we've got options that expire on NDX on the close today. The implied volatility of those was coming in as the day went along, indicating that people were okay taking on a little risk that we would get a big move after the election results today. Of course, we're seeing a big move. We're seeing a big move to the upside. But if you'd watched the short term, just the options that expire on Wednesday, if you'd watched them throughout the day, which I didn't, so this is Monday morning quarterbacking, you would have seen that election risk was coming out of the market yesterday, even before we started to get the results last night.
So we take a look at the VIX and we take a look at the vol Q, of course, the volatility index that overlays the Nasdaq 100. Did they perform relatively the same, or were there any glaring differences?
The VIX was elevated relative to vol Q going into the election, which is a little bit unusual. It happens, but it's not a common level for VIX. And typically, if there's a lot of macro risk, you'll see VIX elevated relative to vol Q, which represents implied volatility on NDX options. This morning, both of them are experiencing what you would call a volatility crush. The VIX is still at a premium relative to vol Q, and vol Q is actually down more on a percentage basis, but we could probably associate that with the outperformance of the Nasdaq or the Nasdaq 100 this morning.
All right, so Russell, to wrap up here, what's your outlook going into the end of the week? I understand the election is out of the way. That is one element, one piece of uncertainty that we finally, have off the timeline here. But what's your outlook for the remainder of the week? Do you expect to see volatility come in as it has on the overnight?
It appears, with respect to the betting markets, it looks like Joe Biden is expected to win this thing. And as long as we don't see something that comes along and upsets that card, which would be a flip right now as you and I speak. Last I saw him, and it can change minute to minute, Michigan was now ahead for Biden, and Wisconsin was solidly ahead for Biden with about 5% left to count for both of those places. And if he wins those two states, it puts him over 270, no problem. So I think as long as that remains the status quo, if there's no big surprises, if all of a sudden we see a Michigan number that flips to Trump, then we might see some excess volatility. We got a Fed meeting today, so maybe that's going to be, maybe we'll start focusing on the economy once again, which I know you and I will be happy about.
Yes, certainly looking forward to getting back to good old earnings, good old macro, good old Fed. It'll be nice to return to some sense of normalcy. Russell, thanks as always for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks a lot, Jill.
You got it. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.